Okay, perfect. So it's just gone 10 o'clock. So I'm sure there's a couple more people or a few more people left to join. But if everyone's ready, and for those on the call, we'll get going. So delighted to have you here this morning for the Ask the Experts virtual event. So I'm delighted to say we've got some of the Crimson brain boxes and geniuses on the call to give you an update on all things Microsoft technology and all things business solutions. So it'd be great to get your feedback at the end of this session. I think this is one that we're keen to run moving forward to help folks like yourselves, customers, prospects, and anyone who's interested in learning a little bit more about what's going on in the Microsoft world and across the business solution disciplines that Crimson work across. Just a little bit for those of you that don't know who Crimson are, I'm delighted to see that we've got some customers on who work with us or have worked with us for a number of years. But principally, Crimson is a Microsoft Gold partner who helps unite people, processes, and technology. So, whilst some of the Microsoft technology is fantastic, embedding it within your organizations and realizing the value can be tricky. So we work with the best practice Microsoft technologies and ensure that actually the people and process side as part of the implementations are taken care of in combination and in collaboration with you. Some of you may already realize this, but we work across a number of different sectors and have a number of different Microsoft Gold competencies. And really, right from the inception and requirements gathering stage, we're with customers every step of the way through the implementation, change adoption, and then ultimately into ongoing BAU support, collaboration, and then roadmap services. So we'll be touching upon some of the capabilities and Microsoft technologies that we work upon and talking to you about some latest content, some hot topics as we go through the session. But yeah, a little bit of an introduction for those of you who perhaps don't know us as well, and apologies for those that do. Summarizing, the Microsoft technologies by technology type is quite easy because Microsoft do that for us. But thinking about the four things across the industries and customers that we work across that Crimson want to be famous for are these four categories here. So it's helping drive continuous digital innovation into organizations. So seizing and taking advantage of modern capabilities like artificial intelligence, jumping on some of the technology and business and global trends, which we'll touch upon in some of the demonstrations today, but allowing organizations that opportunity to innovate. Very easy to keep the lights on and focus so much on BAU activity, but what about the innovation and driving innovation to help businesses transform and grow? B is a massive part of what we do. Some of you people on the call have been involved with us in various different customer engagement, Dynamics 365 and Power Platform capabilities that we've worked with you on. So for us, that isn't about Dynamics. It's about helping organizations and the businesses we work with drive better customer experiences and actually driving better colleague experiences to enable our businesses and our customers' colleagues to be able to do more with less. C is about fundamentally driving automation and optimizing your business processes, so streamlining efficiency within your organization, and often about reducing cost, reducing waste, and actually helping you as organizations optimize the way in which you work. And lastly is about actionable data insights. So it's all very well having solutions like Azure, integrating your data, having capabilities like Dynamics Power Platform, SharePoint, but actually understanding what's going on with your data and being able to action those key points is something that we're helping organizations enable. So the four key categories, technology aside, of what is it that we're doing with businesses today in 2022. So in terms of the individuals who are going to walk you through some of the key categories across the Microsoft technology platforms and business solutions areas, We've got Martin going up first, who sits within our consultancy team and is a Dynamics 365 black belt guru, ninja. We've got Steve, who has dialing in live from Spain, and is our absolute in-house expert on Azure. We've got Ollie, who equally works in Martin's team on the consultancy side, who's going to talk all things Power Platform today, and is our in-house Power Platform and Microsoft expert. And we've got Caroline Lee, who, last but not least, is going to talk you through all things modern workplace. So we'll be touching upon Microsoft Teams capabilities and some SharePoint capabilities too. So with that, I'll hand over to our first event, which is Martin. Martin, over to you.
Yep, thanks, thanks, Jordan. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so I'm just going to do a very short session on something really kind of hot off the press from Microsoft at the moment, and that is Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. So I've just got 2 slides just to kind of introduce the concept, and then what I'll do is just quickly get in and give you a quick demo of what the application actually looks like. If you were to go on the internet right now and start looking for information around sustainability and what organizations need to do about sustainability, you're going to find that there's a wealth of information out there, and a lot of it will talk about the pillars, the pillars of transforming into a more sustainable organization. What Microsoft have done from a technology perspective is they've really simplified that model, and they've basically narrowed it down to 3 pillars, and the 3 pillars are basically assess. So assess is where you basically assess where you are today, in terms of things like your emissions, your commitment to being more eco-friendly and being more sustainability. Accelerate is then about looking at and working with technology to see how you can accelerate your road to the 3rd pillar, which is transform. And that's basically where you would then, transform into this new eco-friendly, sustainable organization, and hopefully achieve the goals that you will have set out in the assess stage. So that kind of brings you full circle back to making sure that you are achieving your goals. Assess is really important because how can you accelerate and transform if you don't actually know where you are today? So those are the 3 pillars. The other slide that I wanted to show you was this one, because this talks about the scope. When we get into the application, you'll see lots of screens have got references to scope. The problem with when we talk about scope is that it's open to interpretation, and each organization will have different views on how they are going to define the various scopes. But basically, it's 3 scopes. Scope 1 is about your direct responsibilities, your direct emissions. So that's things like your own organizational facilities. So if you are a university, for example, then it's about your campus facilities, any vehicles that you might use on campus. And I'm sure there's lots of other industry verticals on here. You could think of examples of where you can directly control those facilities and those assets in terms of the emissions that they produce. The other two are scope 2 and 3, and both relate to indirect responsibilities. So, for example, scope 2 might be things like an organization purchasing electricity, purchasing gas, purchasing other features from or assets from other organizations where they will have some control but not direct control. So, you know, for example, a university might choose who they want to purchase their gas or electric from. You know, a housing association might choose, you know, where they're going to get their supplies from. So they, although it's indirect, they do have some control. And then scope 3 is where you've got very little or no control at all. So this might be organizations that are either in your upstream or your downstream. So maybe your supplier organizations, and then maybe the organizations then that you know will maybe sell, if you're a manufacturing organization, maybe sell the products that you are manufacturing. So you'll see when we get into the demo, you'll see it talks about scope. So I'm just going to end the slides there, and what I'm going to do is jump into the interface. So the first thing that you'll notice when we get in here is that if you are familiar with using any of the standard Dynamics 365 apps, so Dynamics 365 for sales, customer service, marketing, the first thing you're going to notice is that this interface is very, very familiar to you. So, and that's deliberate. Microsoft what they've done is they've built this platform you know, using the same technology that they're using for all their other apps. So it's built on top of the Power Platform. It's using the Dataverse to store the data, and then obviously they're using the interface or a similar interface to that we're familiar with when we use any of the other Dynamics apps. So key to using this application is your activity data. So when I go down here at the bottom, if I drop into the data area, what you'll see is right at the top here, you've got your activity data. So your activity data is basically where you are capturing data about all the different activities. So is that things like the amount of diesel that's being used by a vehicle, the amount of electricity that's being consumed by various buildings that you may have as part of your estate. So, and you can see straight away, we see the scope 1, the scope 2, and the scope 3. And inside of that, we've got different sources. And this is all configurable, so you can add additional sources here as you want. But let's look at, as an example, let's look at direct emissions, and let's look at mobile combustion, which would be basically the vehicles that you may be responsible from. And what I can do is I can view that activity data there. So it's just going to load up in a second. So you can see each one of these represents an activity. And if I click on the London fleet here, for example, and you can see it's a record, and what it's got is information about you know, the activity, what vehicle type it is. But the key bit over here is obviously the reporting element, which shows me the transaction date, the consumption start and end date, and then things like the quantity and the unit and so on, and distances and what distance unit. So you can see that's an activity over a time period. This activity can come from direct connections to other systems. It could be using IoT type technology to pull that activity data in into the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability application. But also, if you don't have the ability to connect to other applications to pull in this activity data, then what you can do is you can import the data. So anybody that's used to importing data into a Dynamics application will have no problem with setting up a connection or importing the data into the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. Once you've got your activities in there, then what the next thing that will need to happen is that the system will then need to do some calculations for you. And the way we do that is we have these calculation models and these factor libraries. So if I look at the calculation models here, for example, you can see that there's a whole list of calculation models in here, and you can see we've got one here for mobile combustion. So if I open this record, then what you'll basically see is that we've got a process for actually calculating the mobile combustion based on the activity data that we're loading into the system. So you can see here we've got our source, we've got our report, and then we've got this condition about is the vehicle on the road or not, and if it is, then we go down this path. If it's not, we go down a different path. So this is your calculation model, if you like. And in your calculation model, what you will find is that you will use various factors in that calculation, and that's where you have your factor libraries. So again, what you can see in here is that we've got all our different factor libraries in here. We can create new libraries. And basically, if I look at one here, we've got mobile combustion here for vehicles, but we've also got for fuels as well. So if I look at this one, and what you'll see is that on here, I've got the name and the description, but this is the key part here. We've got this documentation reference. So what you will find is that there are a lot of greenhouse gas emission factor hubs that are popping up on the internet now, and various governments, various bodies are producing these. And the great thing about these is that they will provide you with the factor libraries and also the calculation models. So these are standard. So what you can actually do is you can import those into the application, so that you don't have to manually create these. And the great thing about that, of course, is you're using the standard recorded models and factors then within your application. If you want to build your own, then you can build your own too. So once you've got your activity data in and you've got your factor libraries and your calculation models, then the application basically takes care of the rest and basically does the kind of the magic, and will basically capture your and produce your reports for you. And that's where I'm basically going to end my short session. So I'm basically going to just go back to the analytics tab, and you can see that on the home screen, it's already producing an overview for me of where we are in terms of our emissions. But if I go into the Insights tab, and I don't know if you noticed the Power BI logo just popped up there briefly for a second. So this is basically all produced with Power BI using the data that we've put into the system, the activity data. And what you can see here is I've got my emissions overview here, but then I've also got it broken down into scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And I've also got my renewable energy. Now, this is a standard dashboard that comes with the product, so we don't need to build this out. But obviously, again, because all the data is stored in the Dataverse, then if you want to build your own dashboards or your own Power BI, then obviously that's quite straightforward to do as well. The other thing that I just wanted to quickly show you is this ability to have scorecards. So within the application, what you can actually do is you can actually build out your own goals and targets, and then you can measure how successful you are, or how close you are on track, or are you at risk. So you can see here that within this carbon reduction plan for 2030, we've actually got 8 goals listed out here. And they can roll up into other goals. And then what we can do is we can measure the progress. As you can see, we're not doing very well at the moment. Most of them are on 0, but we have got one here that's on 4.5%. Yep. And what we can do is we can measure the status of these. So are they on target? Are they at risk? So we can see that over time to see how close we are to hitting our targets. And on that note, I will hand back to Jordan.
Thanks, Martin. That's really insightful. Yeah, I think just for those on the call, this is sort of hot off the press from Microsoft, and across a number of our verticals where we've shown it in housing, higher education, and even home building. I know it's it's potentially a very useful tool to help organisations track, maintain, and adopt and enable really their sustainability plans. The capabilities are all there. It's just a case of turning them on and using capabilities like this from Microsoft to track progress. We have been running a free workshop on the Sustainability App Manager, and if anybody would like more information on that at the end of that, please do let me know. Thanks, Martin. So next session, moving on from Microsoft sustainability and Dynamics 365 and Power Platform capability, we're going to go over to Steve now as our next expert to talk all things Azure. So Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Jordan. Let's get the screen sorted. So a slightly different tack now, I suppose, because I live in Azure world, Azure practice at Crimson, kind of Azure infrastructure design, etc. So we've got 3 updates that we've been working with recently to run past you guys. So one of the things we have in Azure, obviously, is a responsibility of design. So even though we've got lots of benefits to cloud with resilience, there are still decisions to be made when deploying a service on SLAs. Should it be multi-region, ensuring there's no single points of failure, etc. And it can be challenging to get the balance right sometimes, because generally more availability equals more cost. So there's always at the design stage that balance of cost versus due diligence done on the availability side. That could be challenging and can result, I suppose the responsibility is if there was a region outage in Azure or a degradation of service, which does happen, the reality is that the service may become unavailable to customers or to people. So the question may be asked, why didn't we use a multi-region design? The answer may be because the cost doubled and the SLAs were acceptable that we use a single region. So that's the world. What can be challenging, though, is how do you validate after? You can design, you can show that you've got no single points of failure, but how would you emulate an Azure region outage? And that's where Azure Chaos comes into play. It's a preview service, so it's still maturing. It's obviously not general release yet, but what it does do is it offers this. It's got, I think, probably the coolest Azure service name, Azure Chaos, but it offers this ability to start creating projects where you can emulate, simulate outages, be it small ones at individual level or larger ones at like a region level. So a really useful tool, a tool useful for us because we can start to validate those designs and build in. Another use for it as well is the hypothesize, experiment, analyze, improve. There's a whole science out there about chaos emulation. But what may be is that you can start to use this to not just validate your design, but also to tweak your design as well. If you scale it out, can you scale it in? Are there cost savings there? So it can also be useful in the long-term project life cycle as part of a tooling there. So something we've been playing with. We've not really deployed it widely yet for customer use. We're still getting to grips with it ourselves. And the reality is, it sounds really good. It will be really good, I'm sure, and really useful. But if you go into the Azure portal at the moment, you get the Azure Chaos Studio. As it says on the tin, it is a studio. You can create quite complex simulations of chaos or disaster using the studio type building branches. You can add in pauses. You could add in multiple scenarios. So really quite complex. One of the challenges, and what I'm sure Microsoft are working on because they're adding more, is the faults. This is ultimately you want to break something. So at the moment it's very IaaS biased. So containers, infrastructure, some networking, and there are many faults that you can introduce to stress your environment and see what the result is. At the moment, though, not many PaaS ones. So a classic example might be you have an Azure front door. You've got a web application farm behind it and SQL PaaS services behind it. At the moment, there are no interruptions or faults that you can introduce for those. It is very new though, the service, and they're adding faults weekly, so I'm sure it will be there. So what we expected to go in and stress all of our, our perhaps most complex designs, not quite there yet, but a real interesting concept and tool to use as well. So Azure Chaos, one to keep an eye on, I think. Again, quite technical, but as part of the designs that we use, they of course are secure first. A lot of designs are publishing services, publishing web services perhaps, and a standard pattern may be that there is or is a web application firewall, a protection layer, a security boundary that sits around the bits inside Azure. And they traditionally are Azure Front Door or Application Gateway. So a regional WAF or a global WAF. And I'm happy to, if there's any questions, take them later or go through in more detail. But what Microsoft have done is the WAF component, the web application firewall, they've upgraded to version 2 now, and they've standardized it across Front Door and Application Gateway, the different places that this WAF or protection sits. It's more performant. It uses the latest OWASP security measures. Also, the reporting and the analytics are a lot better as well. One of the things, of course, with these front doors is you might want to interact with a SIEM solution, or you may need to ship the logs off elsewhere. So there's been quite a lot of change to it. Also, what we did find, perhaps with any WAF, but with the Microsoft version 1, is you turn it on and there is always the risk of false positives. So you've got a nicely working web app sitting behind it, and you get lots of interruption potentially. There is always a training exercise part. Obviously with version 2, there's quite a lot of enhancements to make sure that those false positives are reduced. So if you have looked at it before or perhaps discounted it, worth a revisit. The third and final update is something we've been working on, and this is kind of the cool thing about working in Crimson is that we do have different practices. So with the practice that looks after Dynamics, our data practice, and the Azure infrastructure practice that I work within, it's illustrative of something as simple as the DES replacement. So I'm sure most customers, if you're using Dynamics, may be using the data export service to SQL PaaS backend, and of course that's being depreciated November this year. So we've got a lot of customer interest in replacing a wave to Synapse. Now, I'm not an expert on the bits inside Synapse, the data, the dynamics flow of data, but what we have been involved heavily with is the deployment of Synapse and also the networking components as well. And it's really illustrative, again, in Azure. It's very easy. Synapse can be a beast, and it could be a very complex structure, but it's very easy to deploy next, and you've got a Synapse within your environment within 5 to 10 minutes. One of the things that is essential, though, and cannot be changed is whether you choose whether to use a managed virtual network or not within your deployment. And this really comes back to your existing Azure environment or your company security requirements. So what the replacement does is basically push data from Dynamics to an Azure storage account that the Synapse can then work with. A standard practice is to lock down storage accounts with firewalls to only accept connections from known places, good security. If that is the case, if that's your security model, and for the majority of our customers it is, then instantly you need to use the managed virtual network capability of Synapse. And that can't be changed after deployment. So a next deployment or setup, so a redeploy. So illustrative of the Azure planning part for the Synapse replacement is important really before deploying anything. Some more low-level techie stuff. If you work within Azure, there are virtual networks, which is what it says on the tin, ways to network things together. Synapse uses a managed network, so if you are planning it and you've got a larger team, it takes a little bit more planning to make sure that you get the networking components correct. Price, how much does it cost? Obviously, that's a wider question, but for the virtual network part, the managed VNet pricing, the standard within Azure normally is that you use a higher tier. API management is a good example. As soon as you want to integrate API management with virtual networking, you need the premium tier, which jumps from £500 a month to £2,000 a month as an illustration. Different model with Synapse. It's actually based upon the amount of pipeline activity runs that you do. So that's a small takeaway. If you are planning to run it, and if you need to put it in this more secure virtual network mode, just be aware of the pricing difference there. And that was my 3 updates. So I'll hand back to you, Jordan.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, really insightful. I think sustainability through to security, and I think a lot of our customers have been asking us about sign-ups and it being a hot topic, as well as, you know, some of the new announcements like you've touched upon there from the Inspire events with the Chaos technology, which I agree is a very cool name. I really appreciate that, Steve, and I'm sure there'll be some questions at the end to point to you with regards to Azure. So moving very swiftly on to the next section, which is over to Ollie Sinclair to talk all things Microsoft and Power Platform. Ollie, over to you.
Thanks, Jordan. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so within the Power Apps area or Power Platform area, we've obviously had the Wave 2 release come through, and there's just a couple of things I want to touch on today. One of them being sort of a new area around governance and control called managed environments. The second part is on multi-entity forms and the really cool work that's happening within Microsoft. And then the third part is around actually you know, the more reporting and analytics side of Power Apps and how even end users can utilize some of the functionality within Power BI to quickly create reports when they're actually within the application itself. So those are 3 areas I want to touch over today. You'd be pleased to know I'm not doing any slides, so I will be just waffling on. So Jordan, you'll have to give me a nudge if I take up too much time, and I will make sure I don't. Firstly, the first one, managed environments. What is it? Where's it come from? What does it do? So managed environments has come from really feedback from customers and partners around when you are you know, administrator or you're administering a number of Power Platform environments, it is actually quite tricky to manage and control those environments, understand applications, you know, what's being used, where it's being used, control things like data and those elements. So really the community has been asking Microsoft to make managing governments a lot easier. So they've come up with a concept called managed environments. These are available per environment, so you can set up each of environments to be managed by this new feature, or you can ignore it. So on the screen here, what you can see is I'm in the Power Platform Admin Center. I'm in one of my tenants that I do demonstrations for housing associations, and I've got a couple of demo play master environments. Now, if I click on the demo environment and I go ahead and edit the managed environment, I'm just going to show you what it would look like if I didn't have one. So that the view is enable management environments. For this demo, I've already enabled it. But what you've got in terms of what it can give you is the 3 core areas which Microsoft was starting with. It's worth noting that yes, there's only 3 elements of management control at the moment, but they really are looking to increase that based on customer and partner feedback. So the first thing is what you can configure is a weekly digest, and that really will give you sort of a summary of what's in the environment. So what applications, what Power Automate flows are in the environment. Critically, what is not being used. So a suggestion around the last time some of these applications were executed, and also how much these were used, and what's the sort of the resource effort for these environments. And what it does, it just comes up with a weekly digest that gets sent out to the Power Platform admins or the Dynamics 365 admins if this is a Power Apps or a Dataverse environment connected to Dynamics 365 apps. It's a relatively straightforward email that kind of gives you a review of the active apps, how many active flows or Power Automate flows, and how many users. And then some of the elements, as I said, around cleaning things up and then the most popular applications by session. So you can really see the session count. So it's giving you a real good view and understanding of you know, the scope of use of this environment. So the second part is really around limit sharing. So you can limit the sharing of these environments and the applications within those environments to, and you've got two options really. To be able to limit the total of individuals that can access this environment, you would need to exclude sharing to security groups, because obviously security groups, then it's the Office 365 administration that shows adds and can add and remove users, and therefore it would be very difficult to then control the limit of the number of individuals. But you've got some controls there to be able to help you manage and keep the right scope. And obviously these Power Platform admins making sure that, you know, the licensing is not going to explode all of a sudden because we've got a new environment, and then we're adding 100 odd brand new users that don't have the licensing capabilities. So we've got to make sure that we're maintaining that. And the third part is around data policies. So if you're aware, the Power Platform has data loss prevention policies, and what we can actually do here is navigate directly to the policies that are applied to this environment to be able to manage them. So again, you know, a lot of work has happened behind the scenes within the Power Platform to make these environmental specific. Data loss prevention is one of them. So this is the policy that's specifically aligned to the housing association demo. So again, a lot of work that's happened on these environments, and it is, you know, really quite useful. The obvious question that might come up to the administration savvy is, okay, that's great, but surely this stuff is covered in the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit. And you're dead right. Yes, it is covered in the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit. But the problem with the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit is that it does take quite a lot of Azure knowledge, domain knowledge, and quite a lot to set up and install. If you're looking at something very quick to be able to manage and govern, really without too much of time and resource and effort spent configuring and installing solutions to get the Centre of Excellence up to scratch, this really is a one-click, and you're already managing the environment. What we are looking obviously is if you do need some more in-depth management of those environments, Crimson do offer some training and actually the implementation of the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit for yourselves. But again, you know, Microsoft give this as a very, very quick, very easy way of doing some core elements that a lot of customers and partners have been asking for to make simple. Not to forget the COV Starter Kit. There's a lot more here that can be done. And if you guys are interested in having a look at managing in a little bit more detail around your Power Platform environments, obviously come speak to us and we can talk you through the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit. So the other area is around the way in which Microsoft are doing some updates around the multi-entity forms and how we can support highly productive environments. So I'm going to show you kind of a very straightforward form on one of my community examples, where I've got what's known as an involved customer. So this is a link between a customer and a committee. But what I want to show on this page is some details around the customer. Now, traditionally, you know, you would have the ability to have what's known as a quick view. This is an edit only quick view, so we can't change anything here, but it gives you some information about the data that's stored within that linked entity, that customer record. Now, what's happening? What used to happen at the beginning of this year, you would be able to create a new control, a form control, but you would have to go back into the classic editor within the Power Apps Maker, and to be able to add a custom control and do some configurations. This new release, what Microsoft are trying to do is convince everybody you don't need to go back into classic mode. You can stay in the new app maker, and you will have these tools and elements available to you. And one of those elements is being able to add those components in. And what they've got is they've actually got the form control component there, so you can go ahead and add that in, and you would be able to specify, for example, the column name. So I'm going to actually look at the customer, and I'm going to, yes, I'm going to bind that to the customer name. What you can see here is, yes, the preview screen doesn't really show it in that much detail, but you do have the ability to edit that once it's done. And you have some other things around being able to use the main form for editing or creating if there isn't a linked customer in this scenario. But what does that look like? Well, so this would be the old form. The new form, what you can see now is I've just brought in the full contact form actually into this this involved customer record. So you can see I'm on this record here, and this is opened up, and you are able to edit it. Now that's great, that's brilliant. It's definitely far more intuitive, a lot easier for a user to be able to edit and change things on one screen. The downside is where you have, say, more complex scenarios where this entity, there is some business process flows, and you're on the second process flow, and actually the sub-entity or the related entity, there's some business processing, or there's some elements on the command bar that you would want to do. Well, this is the next evolution of this would actually then be, and again, unfortunately, with the preview, it's still in preview, so I can't actually show that now. But what you'll see is, down on this left-hand side, sorry about the imaging, you can see that actually when you have that form control in the new versions, you're going to have the ability to see the process flow as well as some of the command lines at the top. So now you're going to be in that one area. You've got one entity that you're controlling the flow and controlling editing, and you're also controlling the flow and edits of the sub entity as well, which is absolutely fantastic. So no navigating around and jumping from screen to screen. You'll be able to do that in one. So again, Microsoft coming up with really good ways of being able to manage data in an accessible way. The third part of the demonstration is around being able to visualize Power BI within the Power Apps area. Now, traditionally, yes, you could embed a dashboard, a Power BI dashboard within Dynamics and show that. Downside of that is you need to go into Power BI first, you need to get your data first, you need to set up all the charts and views and what you want to do, and then publish that and make sure people have got the right security to access it. And there is obviously dashboards within Dynamics that do, pretty good things. Like, for example, if I was on a view, these active applications, I could see a chart of some relatively straightforward elements once this loads. And that's brilliant. It gives us some information to go on, but then you would have to obviously save that. And if you were to share that information, you would need to get somebody to go back into the view and see that chart and see that view. Just jumped offline for a second there. So what's happening now is that we have this the toolbar at the top, which allows us to automatically visualize this data within Power BI. So clicking the visualize this view automatically opens up a Power BI screen. And grabs that data from Dynamics and is automatically making charts and views and elements of a Power BI dashboard with just the intelligence of Dynamics and this process. So I'm not saying it's massively intuitive, but it is pretty cool, and it does show you some pretty good graphics. But the beauty of this is you're kind of in Power BI already, and you've got some of those capabilities of changing, filtering data, adding and views and elements of that. Just wait for this to load. There are a couple of setups that need to happen within the environments. You have to set up on the specific app you want this functionality available, and you also have to set up some some settings within the environment as well. So as you can see here, I've automatically come up with a couple of graphs from Power BI. If I just change the view of these and change the actual fields that I'm using, you can see what it's already done is it's counted my active applications by status reason, and it's actually said that new status reason has the highest count by thousands of percent, because we've got 23 up in here. Now that's great. It looks really good. We've got count by status reason. Let's have a look and see if we can do some other things. We can actually change and add some more details around whether it's shortlisted or not, which is another field on that view, and it shows up some other elements. Now that's really useful, but say for example I actually need a little bit more data in here. What you can do is you can go back to here, and with the new edit columns you can very quickly add, say for example I wanted to add application type in there. And then if I visualized the Power BI now, it's going to give me that column to play with within Power BI. So very intuitive in terms of selecting the right data and being able to show that in Power BI.
Thanks, Ollie. Just a quick one before we move on to Caroline. I think it's fair to say the Power Platform is becoming more what I would describe as cohesive and intrinsically linked with all elements. So Power BI, Dynamics, Power Platform are all coming part of a common component that is coming together. What I think it'd be good if anyone at the end of this session has got questions for Ollie, that we can ask them, and there's plenty more to show around Power Apps, Canvas apps, and additional Power Platform database capabilities with Power BI if you've got any questions at the end. Just conscious of time and moving through into some of the modern workplace updates. We've got our last expert in the form of Caroline, who was going to walk you through something that I think has been fond to everyone who's been a Microsoft user during pandemic and post-pandemic, which is looking a little bit more into some of the Microsoft Teams capabilities. Caroline, if it's okay, I'll hand over to you for the last session, and then guys, please do use the chat for questions, and we'll have a question session at the end for all of our experts. Thanks, Ollie.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to talk about something that we all know about. In modern work, we try and pride ourselves on low code, no code, or if we do have to use code, which we inevitably do, then at least it's in a state that you can manage yourselves after we've walked away, so you don't have to keep coming back to us for help with that code. So I thought about Teams, and I'm guessing a lot of you, this is familiar. Too many teams. Everyone was allowed to create teams, and we've now ended up with far too many. So rather than thinking about updates, it's more about what we can do using what we've already got that we can do to help ourselves managing all this proliferation of teams. So I've done a slide with text. I'm just going to talk over this, but basically, if you want to see how many teams you've got, remember that when you create a team, it's really a SharePoint site. And I'm a SharePoint, so I love that idea. But if you go into the reports in the admin center and you're looking at those usage reports, a really useful one is to click on the SharePoint one, because that will show you how many sites you've got, and you can export that to Excel and see that. You have got active sites in SharePoint, but the clue there is active sites in the SharePoint admin. So actually what I find is to get more information from the general admin center. I'd always say consider locking it down to smaller groups to be able to create these teams, but it does cause upset if you've let everybody create teams in the past and now you suddenly lock it down, you're going to upset people. So one of the things we encourage is to have champions within each area, so each business area has their champions, and allow them to be the people that approve the creation of a team. they will know what teams already exist in your organisation that are used by that team. A lot of the time, they only need a folder or a channel or something in an existing team. They just don't know it's there. So they go straight to IT, ask for a new team. Next thing you know, you've got another team and another SharePoint site and another shared OneNote, another shared planner and an email address being used up. So what we've looked at is how we could make that easier. So we decided to introduce an approval process, and everything that I'm going to show you is done out of the box. So it's using those tools that we've already got. So thinking about it, we've got a SharePoint site behind, and it depends how complicated you want to make this. You've got a SharePoint list, so why not when you create a team, register that you've got that SharePoint, that team created, and have a review date. As simple as that, just have a column that's a review date. But we could make it more slick because we've got these tools. We've talked about the Power Platform. So we created a Power App where our users can just ask for a new team. In that Power App, you can be really clever. You can ask them questions of what sort of team is it? Is it for a project? Is it for a department? What sort of channels do you want? Who are the members that you want in there? And you can ask all this information and gather it just from a simple form. If you don't want to use a Power App, you can just use a form on a SharePoint list. All it is columns in a SharePoint list. But then the clever bit is using Power Automate behind. And it depends how much you want to do with this Power Automate. The simple bit might be to just get an approval from a manager to say it's okay, or one of those champions. If you've got a list of departments and a list next to it with the people that can approve teams for that department, you can use that in your Power Automate approval. When you do that, you record that the team has been created in a SharePoint list. But a team is a SharePoint site. So we can do some other things. When you think about, if you know SharePoint and you know SharePoint site templates, when you add a SharePoint site template, you can add things like branding, you can add the regional zones. If you're an international company, you might want different time zones on your teams. You can also add content types, which allows you to add templates. So that's what we've come up with. So here is just a very simple idea. It's just, this is using a Power App, but you might want to do it from a SharePoint list. It is a SharePoint list. Each of these is a column. On the screen here, we haven't got all the fields, but I'm just showing the sort of thing we ask. What do you want your team to be called? What's it going to contain? Is it a public or a private team? Who are the owners? Who are the members? And how long is it? When's the review day? So on ours, we've set it where you choose 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and then you'll get prompted for that. You can also add on here, what channels do you want? Or you might have teams that you already want to replicate. You might say when you have a team about projects, you're always going to have a channel for finance or a channel for marketing. These can be created for you, so taking the onus off your owners. This is what the Power Automate looks like. So I've started from the approval process. So when this is approved, we very simply, it's easy to do. You might want us to help you create it first, but as I say, managing going forward, we can document it for you. But you're going to create a team. You're then going to go and create the channels that they've asked for. You add the owners because you've got all this information in that SharePoint list. You add the members, and then you apply a SharePoint site design, which are now named SharePoint site template. So I need to update my comments on my flow. And then finally, we update our SharePoint list and we add in there the date it was created and the URL. Your review date could be a calculated column that is creation date plus 365. Or if in our case, we've got a case statement because we're allowing them to choose whether it's going to be reviewed in 6 months, 12 months or 18 months. But this is the most basic, simplest way that I can do that a lot of people out there would be able to look at with some help. So from that list or from that form or from the Power App, when they've submitted, I want this team, we just get a very standard out of the box email. It's telling you the name of the team, who's requested it, a bit of a description, and it allows you to approve or reject. When that happens, it goes off, it runs, it creates the team, applies the style and adds the channels. So this is a very basic one. As you can see from that flow, we've added an example channel. And then because we've used a SharePoint site design or a site template, we've been able to add in content types. So because we've added in content types, when we go to the new button, you've now got templates you can use, which also, if you want to take that further, means you can capture different types of metadata depending on the document that they're creating. So if it's a holiday request form, you might want to get them to fill in the start date and the end date and upload that into your library. By using those content types as well, we've got all sorts of things we can do behind the scenes with retention labels. So you can think about that content that you've got in your SharePoint libraries. You can apply retention labels or sensitivity labels to things based on content type or the library that they're in. You can then, it's all going into a SharePoint list. So this is just a basic SharePoint list, but behind the scenes, you can manually go in and have a view based on review date or reviewer. So you can base on those views, or you could go one step further and have a scheduled Power Automate report. But honestly, do you need to? You might be able to just do it manually while we're using code for code's sake. And finally, the other thing which dips into Steve's team really is if you are having problems, you are setting these up, then maybe you want to set up a group expiration policy. And a group expiration policy will look at what you can set it to auto renew, or you can notify somebody and they have to renew it. I'm always nervous about using these because sometimes people will just say, well, I need to keep all those documents for 12 years. And so they're going to keep the whole team. In that case, you might want to talk to us about retention labels and things that we can do there, because if you're applying retention labels, you can keep that SharePoint documents, but still get rid of the group behind. So talked really fast. That was all I wanted to say, but please do get in touch with us. There's loads and loads you can do. And anybody that knows me knows that was really good for me to just say that little bit.
No, thanks, Caroline. I really appreciate that. And it's so true. I think across customers and prospects, we've seen, people really take advantage of the team's capabilities, but at the same time, just because of the pace of things like the pandemic and how we had to move as organizations given the remote working capabilities, I think governance has always been, 4 or 5 or maybe even 6th on the list in terms of how do we control the amount of teams, what is a team used for, and by virtue of that, there's organic mess, which, as you've just pointed out, can be solved quite effectively, simply and efficiently, and order can be restored, as it were. So thank you, Caroline. That was brilliant. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to raise your hands, use the chat function, or just come off mute to ask any. There was a question that came through, I think, firstly for Martin, just to ask about the new wave release that has come through from Dynamics. Just one thing to call out: is there any sort of one salient feature that you've seen that's really useful?
So for me, the one thing that I'm really excited about at the moment is some of the insights that we're getting around sort of relationship management. So and that's something that I'm planning to bring up on one of the next sessions. So it's the changes that Microsoft are making to things like the sales insights, the customer insights, those sorts of things. So yeah, we'll be doing something on that in one of the later sessions. And the other thing is omnichannel. So I'm really excited about some of the work that Microsoft are doing around omnichannel, and that's something else that I want to line up for a future session as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Martin. Now to the second expert, Steve. A question we get asked a lot is, how do we work with someone like Crimson to understand a little bit more about capability specifically around Synapse, because it's a hot topic at the moment. Just a quick word on that, Steve, as to some of sort of the engagements or workshops that we run that would help organizations understand a little bit more about the Synapse capabilities?
Yeah, very much so. So I suppose there's either a specific need like the DES replacement, it's quite black boxed. We need to do this, and we've got within Crimson we've got different practices. So the data practice are running obviously with the Synapse area, and it's where we can help out. So what the art of the possible, we can run sessions there. What can you do with it? If there's a specific query of we need to achieve this deadline because November's thundering forward and we're having issues with connecting to our Azure environment, again we can concentrate on that, and our practice can assist with. So quite a breadth of assistance we can give, from high level to quite low level technical queries. If there are any needs out there, happy just schedule in a call and run through it.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I've just shared the QR code if anybody needs to scan that on any of the topics we've discussed today. Ollie, if it's okay, just a quick word from you. The evolution of the Power Platform is here and is here to stay. What do you see just coming down the pipeline from Microsoft? Any additional changes that you're expecting to happen across the breadth that is Power Platform now?
Yeah, I think that it's very much back to Martin's point in terms of the insights and really adding AI and ML into all areas of the Power Platform is really where we see quite a lot of gains. I think trying to simplify some of the complex elements and making it very much citizen developer friendly is really a focus. But very much grabbing these components and building these fusion teams where you have your citizen developers and your actual hardcore developers on the same environments and providing some really useful stuff and repeatable components that can be then shared with a load of environments if you're in a sort of an enterprise space. So yeah, there's lots of movement going on in those areas within the Power Platform.
Thanks, Ollie. Yeah, we spoke about two things earlier, myself and you, didn't we, about this idea that a lot of organizations are trying to use the Power Platform to build low-code, no-code applications. Customers that we see are looking for collaborative engagements, and we do offer sessions around assessments around understanding how capable your teams might be and what a knowledge transfer, upskilling and collaboration engagement around the Power Platform might look like. So if anybody's doing something or thinking about doing something with the Power Platform across your organization, do get in touch. And Caroline, just as a last question for you, a fantastic sort of presentation there around some of the what I would describe as quick wins. Certainly some of the capabilities that we've identified and solutions to help them. Just talk to me a little bit about sort of the next steps from your perspective for those organizations that are looking to consolidate and put a little bit more rigor around what they have as a team's environment. Is it quite a quick process just to get that solution initially deployed and start working with us on those things?
Yeah, I mean, that if you wanted to put in something like that, an approval app for teams and lock down who can do those teams, then that is quite a quick process. But we'd also like to engage with the users. If you're going to turn something off that they've been able to do, then make sure that the people know about it. So that's, I'm an end user adoption specialist and a Microsoft certified trainer. So I'm always thinking about the users and how they're going to feel. So getting those people that you're going to assign as champions, maybe making sure that they know exactly what they're doing with teams and the structure that they can do and all the different things that they can do in there. But as an organization, I think lots of organizations now need help looking at retention policies and sensitivity labels and things like that, and looking just what you can do with the Security and Compliance Centre. You've got all this in now. Let's look what reports we can get and how we can manage that data going forward.
Perfect. Thanks, Caroline. And thanks to all the experts on the call this morning, and for all of you joining. It's extremely likely we'll run another one of these sessions in the coming weeks and months. So first and foremost, thanks again for attending, and thanks for everyone for your attention this morning. We really appreciate your feedback on any particular topics you'd like to cover, and how you think this session particularly performed, whether it was useful to you. So if you do have, it shouldn't take any more than 120 seconds, so I'm informed. Please do leave us some feedback, and you can find all the information about not just the Ask the Experts event, but actually the industry sector events that we run around housing, home building, higher education, and other Microsoft type events that we get involved in if you follow us on LinkedIn. But that's all we've got time for this morning. A final thanks, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and look forward to speaking to you all soon. Take care. Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, see you.
Bye.